90% of guitarists quit between 5 and 10 years of playing. And it's not because they lack dedication. You've probably spent thousands on gear, memorized hundreds of tabs, and practiced for years. But when it's time to actually jam, write or solo, you freeze. That's why today I'm revealing the 3 toxic mental traps that not only destroyed guitar progress, but made people quit the guitar altogether. These aren't technical issues you can practice away. There are psychological barriers that make intermediate guitar players give up entirely. If you've ever felt like your efforts are being wasted, then I hope this video will fix it for you without needing to spend 3 hours a day in order to get better. Because here is the truth that nobody tells you. Most intermediate players create this mental prison where they think progress only happens during massive practice sessions. You sit down and start doing all this mathematics in your head, calculating how many years it'll take you to reach your goals. If I practice 1 hour daily, that's 7 hours per week, 28 hours per month. At this rate, I'll need 3 years just to play that Metallica solo clearly. This timeline thinking becomes a motivation killer. You convince yourself that since you can't dedicate huge blocks of time, there is no point even trying at all. It's like telling yourself you won't go to the gym unless you can spend 2 hours there. Most days you skip entirely because you don't have that magical time window. But here is the reality check. I know players who practice 2 hours every single day and make zero progress. They noodle around, play the same old licks they were already playing for a decade. Maybe run through that one pentatonic box without any proper focus. Meanwhile, there are players who practice for just 20 minutes with laser focus and improve faster than anyone else, which often frustrates the first group of people as it seems unfair how someone can progress twice as fast while practicing half as much. That's what's called the asymmetric leverage, where the difference between these two players isn't the time invested, it's the intensity and purpose behind those minutes. Your brain doesn't learn guitar the way you think it does. Neurologically, skill acquisition happens during focus bursts of concentrated effort. After about 15 to 20 minutes of intense focus, your brain starts to fatigue. That's when mistakes creep in and bad habits form. Marathon sessions often reinforce sloppy technique because you're practicing while mentally tired. The time trap also makes you avoid challenging material. You see a difficult song and think, I don't have 3 hours to work on this today, so I'll skip it. And instead you end up playing the same comfortable stuff over and over. Your comfort zone becomes a prison because you've convinced yourself that real progress requires time you don't have. Here is the breakthrough approach that changes everything. Set a timer for 15 minutes, pick one specific technique or one challenging part, focus completely on that single element, no distractions, no noodling, no checking your phone, nothing. And when the timer goes off, you're done. This method creates faster progress than hours of focused repetition because your brain stays engaged and every repetition has purpose. The magic happens in those concentrated 15-minute windows. Your muscle memory develops faster, your technique stays clean, and you actually retain what you practice. If you're being stuck with your playing, then most likely you're following a wrong practice routine, or don't even have one in the first place. That's why I've created a full training where I show you how to build a highly efficient practice routine even if 20 minutes is all that you've got. You can find the link in the description, but even if players fix the time issue, very often instead of their skills, they start upgrading their gear. That 1000 guitar sitting in your room might be the exact reason you're not getting better. Intermediate players fall into this trap constantly. They start believing that better gear will magically unlock their potential. You convince yourself that once you get that perfect amp, those upgraded pickups, or that signature model your guitar hero plays, everything will click into place. The gear hunting becomes addictive. You spend hours researching amps online instead of practicing useful piece of theory, for example. You watch endless YouTube demos comparing pickup outputs. You calculate payment plans for the boutique amp that promises to give you that perfect tone. Meanwhile, your actual playing stays exactly where it was months ago. Here is the brutal truth about gear shopping. It becomes a substitute for the hard work of actual improvement. Buying new equipment gives you an instant dopamine hit. You feel like you're making progress without putting in any real effort. It's way easier to buy a new distortion pedal than it is to master alternate picking properly. I've seen bedroom guitarists with rigs worth over $10,000 who can't even play a simple melody line to save their lives. They own every piece of gear their favorite bands use, but they're not able to play anything past their memorized tabs. Their practice rooms looks like guitar store showrooms, but their playing sounds like they just started last month. But if that's what genuinely makes you feel accomplished, being collector of all these amazing sports cars without having a driving license in the first place, then by all means, good luck. But if you deep down feel that's not what's going to change it, then make sure to change it. Because the gear obsession is so time consuming. You spend your practice time tweaking amp settings instead of working on your technique and songwriting. You adjust EQ knobs for 20 minutes trying to get that perfect tone, then realize you only have 10 minutes left to actually play. By the time you're satisfied with your sound, your practice session is over. This belief system makes you blame your tools instead of studying your technique. When that solo doesn't sound right, you think it's because you need better pickups. When your rhythm playing feels sloppy, you convince yourself a different amp will fix it. Most bedroom players never address the real problem, which is usually your fretting hand accuracy and hand synchronization, which you can fix by watching this lesson after. That's why for a long time I just had one guitar and one plugin, so I can force myself on what's actually important instead of shopping for things I don't need. When you can't blame your gear anymore, you focus on what actually matters, your hands. Those guitar heroes you admire didn't become great by having the best equipment. They became great because they practiced relentlessly with whatever gear they could afford. The one guitar rule will strip away all the excuses and force you to confront your actual skill level. I know it might sound harsh, but I just want to help you open your eyes, and sometimes that might hurt. But thanks to it, you'll start noticing the gaps in your playing that no amount of gear can fix. Once you stop hiding behind gear, you face the most brutal trap of them all: I should be better by now. This single thought destroys more guitar careers than bad technique ever could. You create these impossible timelines in your head based on other people's highlight reels. You see someone post a video of them nailing a complex solo and think they learned it overnight. Your internal dialogue becomes brutal. I've been playing 7 years, why can't I nail this solo? You forget that person might have practiced that specific piece for months before posting it. Like here with this animals as leaders thumping part that took me months before even getting closer. You're comparing their best moment to your average Tuesday practice session. Social media shows you the final result, never the messy process that got them there. This shame creates practice avoidance. You start skipping sessions because facing your guitar means facing your perceived failures. Every mistake becomes evidence that you're not good enough. You tell yourself you'll practice tomorrow when you feel a bit more motivated. But tomorrow never comes because the shame follows you. The comparison trap gets worse when you hit your 30s or 40s. You convince yourself you're too old to improve. Real guitarists started when they were kids, you think. I'm already behind and I'll never catch up. These thoughts become self-fulfilling beliefs. You practice less because you believe improvement is impossible at your age, and simply perfectionism becomes paralysis. You're so afraid of making mistakes that you stop trying challenging materials. You stick to songs you can already play instead of pushing your boundaries. Growth happens at the edge of your comfort zone, but shame keeps you trapped in familiar territory. The craziest part about all this is how this belief sometimes makes players quit right before their breakthrough. Progress isn't linear in guitar playing. You plateau for months, then suddenly another thing clicks. But shame tells you that plateau means you've hit your ceiling. You give up just before the pieces fall into place. Here's what breaks the cycle. Adopt a beginner's mindset approach. Instead of I should know this by now, try I'm curious about this technique. Replace shame with genuine interest in learning process. Every mistake becomes data you can use to adjust your course. That wrong note, bend or slide isn't proof you're bad at guitar. It's information about what needs to be looked at. Stop comparing your chapter 3 to someone else's chapter 20. Focus on your own progress timeline. Can you play something today that you couldn't play a month ago? Perfect, because that's a real progress. Age is irrelevant to guitar improvement. Look at Jordan Rudess from Dream Theater. He started playing the guitar when he was 64, and in 4 years he is already crushing it because he's convinced he can learn and do anything if he puts his head to it. Your brain stays plastic throughout your life. Adults sometimes even learn faster than kids because they have better focus and practice discipline. You're not too old, you're just starting from a different place. Curiosity reignites progress. When you approach challenging material with genuine interest instead of self-judgment, practice becomes exploration rather than self-hatred. So these three traps together create the perfect storm of frustration, which often leads to quitting the instrument. Because 1, the time trap makes you avoid practicing. The gear trap makes you avoid the real work. And the shame trap makes you avoid challenges. But if you manage to break at least one of these traps, it'll start a positive cycle that fixes the others. Right now, identify which trap has the strongest hold on you. Pick one specific action you'll take today. Set that 15-minute timer, put away the gear catalog, or approach one challenging technique with curiosity instead of judgment. Every guitar hero you admire faced these exact mental barriers before. The difference is they push through instead of quitting. You've got this.